Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Dr. Joey interviews Christian business professionals just like you to discover their secrets for working faith positive in a negative world. Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett.
Hey, Faith Positive Nation, Dr. Joey Fawcett here with yet another delicious episode of Faith Positive Radio. More about that in a minute. I use the word delicious to describe this episode because who doesn't like to eat? Okay, if you don't like to eat, go ahead and turn this podcast off right now. Stop watching on YouTube, right? Because this is all about food, family, and fellowship, and all of it done in a faith-based way, right? Because food can be our friend, or food can be our enemy, or food can be something in between, our frenemy. And that's the name of the book. How about that? That our guest today wrote. When Food is Your Frenemy, go over to Amazon, or if you can go to our website at getpositive.today and find his page. There's a link there for you, When Food is Your Frenemy. So food is, of course, something, you got the Food Network, you got food. Everybody wants to watch somebody else cook food, and everybody wants to eat food. I'm not sure how many people really want to cook anymore, but we got all this money spent in the kitchen, so we got to do something with it, right? So right. If we look at the biblical stories of food, man, there are so many. And now for me, the apex of all the stories about food that feature food in the Bible or when Jesus sits down at this very intimate table, right, with 12 of his best friends, 12 guys he's been hanging out with for 3 years, 12 guys he's been telling stories to that they didn't understand, but hopefully they remembered well enough, and they did, to record it so you and I can read them today. 12 of his friends, and what did he have at that table? He had bread and he had wine. So they shared a meal together, and then following the meal, they shared what you and I know as the Last Supper. So food and family and fellowship are amazing combinations, and faith, of course, just makes the table all the richer. So today we're going to discover the personal journey with food of someone who has known the best of food and the worst of food. Is going to help us find that in-between place. Jacob Bustos is our guest today. Jacob, welcome to Faith Positive Radio, man. I'm excited and hungry to have you on this delicious episode.
Thank you very much. It's great to meet you, Dr. Joey.
Oh, it is a pleasure to have you here. So, what's your story around food? I mean, if you write a book called When Food is Your Frenemy, sounds like food's the best of times and the worst of times.
Well, you kind of started off by talking about who our audience is, but really I want to reach out to anybody who has a stomach. That's my punchline for the day.
Okay, I'm glad we got that out of the way. I wouldn't have indigestion for any others.
That's right. If you don't have a stomach, I can't talk to you. My story really begins, as a child, I was always kind of, a little overweight, kind of, in my book, I talk about it. My mom always called me the husky kid. And it was never an issue, never a problem. It never really became that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. And then as I grew older, the weight kind of came on. It just crept on, which happens to millions and millions of Americans, by the way, but it just did creep up.
Especially when you're regarded as the husky kid.
That's right.
Right? I mean, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's right. And, I live in Los Angeles. I live in a world where, unfortunately looks matter, and there's a lot of vanity around, what you look like, how you can dress. And the reality is that all that stuff is not really important, but, the way that people feel about themselves is pretty darn important. And so, we all have a story. We all have a journey, and it doesn't matter how many people I've met that are celebrities and that are, what we would think are who are perfect. No one is happy with their appearance. Everyone has an issue with their self-image that they're trying to fix. And I don't care how gorgeous you are, everybody's still trying to fix something about themselves.
Yeah, we seem to focus, unfortunately, on that one thing we don't like about ourselves, even if it's just one thing, right?
That's right.
And so our identity becomes around that one thing. You were the husky kid. So
That's correct.
You began to gain weight and fulfill that. You fixated on that one thing that was wrong with you. Where did that lead?
It really led to, the self-image issues. It was apparent that I definitely suffered from the self-image issues. I worked in the restaurant business my entire life. I started in the business when I was, 15 years old.
Really? What did you do as a 15-year-old?
I did. I worked in New Mexico. That's where I'm from. I'm from a very small town in northern New Mexico called Las Vegas, and it's the little Las Vegas, not the big Las Vegas. And, I started working when I was 15 years old for the local McDonald's franchise owner.
Uh-huh.
And as I, got closer to high school ending, I moved to the big city in Albuquerque, and I decided to continue my career through the fast food world. I ended up working for a gentleman who owned 15 McDonald's restaurants. And he's actually a great mentor of mine, somebody who I think is just a brilliant business mind. But I worked for him in 26 years ago. So I've been with the same person for about 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, weight was always something that was kind of, part of me. It was, unfortunately kind of became my identity a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point it just kept ballooning. I got married when I was about 22 years old. And I was married for a very short period of time. I think it was under 3 years, Dr. Joey. I had 2 stepchildren. It just didn't go very well. And so, that was a chapter in my life that, unfortunately added to my weight issues.
Right. And all that compounded, that emotional distress just compounded your identity crisis.
That's correct. And within that time period, and I can't really go into much more detail on this, but within that time period, there was a death of one of my stepchildren. So it just, a lot of really negative things going on at that period in my life. And I was young, I was 20.
Must have been, yeah.
Yeah, between 22 and 25 years old. So pretty young still. Right.
What was your faith journey like then, Jacob?
I have been very lucky. I've always grown up in a Christian home. I was born and raised Catholic in northern New Mexico. Come from a big Catholic family on both my sides, my parents' side and my mom's and my dad's side. And so I was always taught about Jesus Christ, and so I always had faith in my life. But it changed quite a bit when I was in my mid-20s. I was born again probably at my 27th, 28th birthday.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And so my faith journey changed at that point in my life, but it wasn't transformed until I hit my mid-30s.
Okay.
And so, yeah, to me, there's a huge difference. It changed.
What's that difference between, it changed and then it transformed? What was the change like? And then we'll talk about the transformation.
Well, I guess it's hard for me to talk about the transformation it's hard for me to talk about the change until I talk about the transformation.
Okay, all right.
It really goes into why I even wrote a book. I had zero plan, Dr. Joey, of writing a book. It never even crossed my mind, and that's probably the last thing in the world I thought I would end up doing. But I was 34 years old, 35 years old, and I was 320 pounds. And so obviously morbidly overweight. 2 things that are very
really hard to look at you today, Jacob. Excuse me for interrupting. It's very hard to look at you today and imagine you as a 320 pounder. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, go over to our Faith Positive YouTube channel. Just take a look at this guy, because a miracle has happened in his life. And I just want you to be able to visualize it with me. Okay, go ahead. Tell the rest of it.
Yeah, it's, I was 30, I think 35, closer to that age. And 2 things happened to me that were very significant. I run a bunch of restaurants. So I left the McDonald's world and joined Panera Bread. And I worked for a franchisee who happened to be the same guy who owned McDonald's. And so moved to Southern California and hit about 35 years old. And I was walking to one of our restaurants one day, and I saw my reflection in the glass. And I really kind of couldn't, it was a point where I looked and saw what I had allowed myself to become, and I just didn't like that. And the second thing that was very significant that happened was one of our investors, we had an investor in our franchise group that, he and his wife put some money into our company to invest.
Mm-hmm.
And, a nice guy, and he and his wife decided to come in and visit the restaurants one day. And I am a very hospitable person. I offered them breakfast as I would offer anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when you meet me, I always tell you, as long as you know me, I'll never let you go hungry, I promise. And so I offered he and his wife breakfast, and they declined. And so for me, that wasn't good enough. So about 20 minutes later, I came by and I offered breakfast once again. And he, in fact, at that point said, "Oh, well, the truth is I don't want to look like you someday." Yeah, it stung pretty bad.
That's
And
harsh.
so, I had talked to my doctor about bariatric surgery. I'm a foodie. I've always been in the food business. I love food.
Yeah.
Who doesn't? And I started talking to my doctor about bariatric surgery. At that point, he really didn't want to do it. I was at least overweight, which is a requirement. But he wanted me to try the traditional way.
Okay.
And it really wasn't until I met the right doctor that helped me, go down that path of gastric bypass, which is what I did. And so I did gastric bypass, and life was great. Dr. Joey, life was awesome. I felt like $1 million.
Yeah.
I took off 50 pounds in the first 30 days.
Wow.
And it just kept falling off after that.
Uh-huh.
And so, the vanity in us kind of kicked in again. And so I started looking at myself and seeing excess skin hanging off of my belly.
Oh yeah, it had to, losing weight that rapidly.
Yeah, you lose all that weight, and then all of a sudden you have all this excess skin. And so, the vanity kicked in, and here I go, deciding to talk to a plastic surgeon about getting it removed. And so life was great. Life was, good. I had never once I never even once thought about, I had a second thought about the decision I made to have gastric bypass. So I decided to have the skin removal surgery, and that was about 4 years ago. October will be 4 years. And so during that process, I went in for my surgery at 6 a.m. I should have been done and out by 12. And at 5 o'clock p.m., I was still in the hospital because they were having a hard time waking me up.
Oh, wow.
And so that really should have been a sign to my doctor not to let me go home, but they did.
Oh.
Yeah. And so about at 8 p.m., my brother, who lives in Phoenix, had actually come to California to help take care of me. So he and my mom were both kind of my caretakers. And so they walked up to me, and I was on the couch, and I was in the fetal position because I had to be in the fetal position for about 2 weeks.
Ooh.
And so he said, you're bleeding. And I said, well, call my doctor. So he calls my doctor, and my doctor says, well, that's pretty normal. That's normal after surgery. If it gets worse, call me back. So about 30 minutes later, he calls back and says, it's pretty bad. There's, his bandages are soaked with blood. And so he still kind of was hesitant for me to go back in. However, about 20 minutes after that, they were now bringing bath towels to compress my stomach and incisions, and it was just full of blood. So, to make a long story short, they put me in the car, got me to the nearest hospital as quick as possible, and I was about a minute from dying in the car. And so I get down at the emergency room, and the only thing that I can remember is being taken into the emergency area. Before I knew it, I had so many doctors and nurses around me. They were calling for blood because they were going to have to do transfusions.
Right.
And then at that point, the only thing I can remember is my brother stooping over me and praying over me. And then I was out. I could see myself. I could see, it was like an out-of-body experience, I guess you would call it. But
yes.
I could see the doctors and nurses working on me.
Oh, wow.
I have a grandmother and an aunt who both passed away probably maybe 3-4 years before this episode. And both were waiting for me at the door. And then the only other thing that I can remember is, I was in the presence of the Lord. I was with Christ, and I was, I think it becomes a little hard for me to talk about this part of the journey because, it's so different than food, right? It has nothing to do with food. but it all has to do with food. And so,
Yeah.
and so I was with the Lord for a period of time.
Mm.
And during that time we had some very, very personal and private moments, and
Mm.
some of it, Dr. Joey, I will never talk about. But
Right.
the
I
parts,
understand.
it was amazing because I was given a choice whether I wanted to come back or not come back. And I
Mm.
could see my mom was sitting in the waiting room, and she was upset, and my brother was upset, and I could see that
Mm.
happening. And
Mm.
so I did choose to come back.
Mm.
But
Mm.
within that time, I was given some very specific instructions with what to do with my life, which, is feed people.
Mm.
And like I said, there was just some very personal, private moments that I just won't share,
Sure, I
publicly ever.
understand.
Um,
Well, how
I
do
don't,
you use human words to describe a heavenly experience? I'm sure that's very difficult. But you heard Christ saying to you in this private conversation, feed my people.
yeah, I was given instruction that, if you go back, if you choose to go back, you need to feed people.
Wow, what
And
did that mean for you?
I've thought about that a lot. It's
Mm-hmm.
kept me up some nights just to think about what all that meant, and
Mm-hmm.
what I went through and what the experience was like. And
Mm-hmm.
it was an incredible experience. I can tell you that the feeling, the love that I felt when I was in the arms of the Lord it was crushing. That's the only way I can describe it. If
Mm-hmm.
you or me on earth could feel the love that I felt, it would crush you.
Mm.
And I chose to come back, and happy I did. I mean, I don't ever think of a day that I say, gosh, I should have probably just stayed behind. um,
Yeah,
I know where I'll go when I die. I know my
sure.
eternal Father has a plan for me. But that really became my transformation. It's not that I
Mm.
didn't know Christ before,
Mm.
um, but it's different. My relationship with Christ is completely different. It's
Mm.
transformed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so then I decided, okay, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to put my recipes out there, because your lifestyle has to change. You cannot go through a weight loss. I literally lost half of my body weight. So I
Mm.
went from 320 to 160.
Mm.
Um, and so I thought, gosh, I'm going to put that in a book, because you cannot just go from 320 to 160 and not change your lifestyle. You can't
Yeah.
drink soda anymore. You can't, you
Mm-hmm.
can't drink liquor.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a liquor fan anyway, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to make changes in order to maintain the weight that you've lost.
Mm-hmm.
And so the transformation really, while it was with food, and while I did have to change the way I ate, the transformation for me in terms of my faith was, I guess it's hard for me to say I can count the transformation, or I could put a measurement to it, because I can't measure it.
Mm.
I will tell you, I completely understand now the difference between our body, our soul, and our spirit. We
Mm.
we all have a body, right? We
Mm-hmm.
don't live in this body. It's a
Sure.
shell.
Well,
And
it's a temple. Mm-hmm.
that's right. And we all have a soul. We actually,
Mm-hmm.
scientifically, you lose like 2 grams of weight when you
Right.
die.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and we all have a spirit.
Mm.
So what I really realized through this transformation is we are built in an exact image of Christ, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Well, we have a
Mm.
body, we have a soul, and we have a spirit.
Mm.
And if we are not in tune with our spirit, there's no way that we can communicate with the Holy Spirit, because that's
Mm.
how we communicate with God. God doesn't come
Mhm.
and sit down next to us and say, here's what you need, or here's what I'm going to do for you,
Yeah.
or hey, what do you need today?
Mm-hmm.
But if we're in tune with our spirit, we can be in tune with the Holy Spirit. And
Mm.
so at that point, I decided to write a book. Had no
Mm.
idea what I was going to call it. I had no idea, am I going to call it something about faith? Is it going to be about food? Is it going to be about, what is it going to be about? And
Mm.
so my sister-in-law came up with the name, the frenemy. She said, food has always been your best friend, and at times it's been your biggest enemy. And
Mm.
so, when food is your frenemy kind of came from a conversation between my brother, my sister-in-law, and myself.
That's an awesome title. It really, really is. So when
Yeah.
Christ looked at you and said, feed my people, he was talking about food for the body, but food for the soul and spirit as well.
Yep. Yes. And I think there, I think it's always open to interpretation, right? People are going to hear my story, and some people say, well, I don't know if it really happened. Well, I don't know.
Now, is this story in your book, When Food is Your Frenemy?
It is. It's all in the book. It is in the book. But I know I don't have to on this program, but on the television programs and on the radio programs I've been on before, it's hard because you don't know who your audience is, and you don't know.
Yeah.
You get the skeptic who's like, well, maybe you were just, maybe you were on drugs and you thought you saw this stuff.
It was a hallucination, right?
Yeah.
Well, the significant takeaway for all of us in Faith Positive Nation is that your life was transformed.
It was.
And you can call it what you want to. We can question the validity of that experience, but it was your experience, and your life was transformed by an encounter with Jesus Christ.
That's correct.
That's what you understand. And I find it interesting that Christ gave you a mandate. He said, hey, Jacob, here are your marching orders. Go feed my people. And so what I hear you saying is in your book, When Food is Your Frenemy, and then now in your mission in life, it's to use feeding the body as a metaphor, or, well, no, it's more than a metaphor because you give recipes, right?
Right.
But to use feeding the body to help us understand what feeds our soul.
Correct. Yeah, because there are recipes. There's 35 recipes in this book, so it's cookbook plus my story, which is nice.
Okay, what's your favorite recipe? I know out of 35, you're bound to have one favorite, and I know it's like my asking you to choose between your children. But what's your favorite recipe? Tantalize us.
I love the ginger soy salmon. It's at the very back of the book.
Ginger soy salmon.
Soy salmon. It's awesome.
I'm gonna go get on an airplane and head out to LA, and you get to cooking, okay? And I'll see you in a few hours. All right. So
that's right.
Bye.
Come on down. I always tell people I will never let you go hungry, and that is absolutely true. People that know me, they know that I won't let them go hungry.
All right. So why is ginger soy salmon your favorite?
I love ginger soy salmon because it's healthy and it tastes good. But here's the real deal, and I'm going to be completely honest.
Be transparent.
My biggest fear now is regain, because it can happen. I can regain weight. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. There are so many people that deprive themselves of food. I mean, you can count the fad diets that are out there. You can count times that people are using the word diet. And the reality is, look, food is enjoyable. God gave us food to enjoy.
That's right. Just like our bodies, right?
That's right. We shouldn't gorge, but we should enjoy it. And so I have always said, look, ginger soy salmon to me is one of those dishes that I can indulge in. I still measure how much I eat. I don't eat, I don't eat 2 or 3 plates full of it, but it's something that tastes good, and it doesn't taste like it's a diet food. So that's why it's one of my favorites.
It's not cardboard, huh? It's flavorful, and salmon's got to be good for you, right? Because it's got all the omega-3s and all that good kind of stuff. Well, I'm glad to know your favorite.
Got all the good stuff.
So Faith Positive Nation, when you get a copy of his book, When Food is Your Frenemy, make sure you find the ginger soy salmon, right?
Ginger soy salmon.
All right, man.
Once for dinner.
That is awesome. Now, you mentioned that you don't eat 2 or 3 plates of it, but it sounds like you portion your plate. Is that part of it?
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Portion your plate. That's my website, portionyourplate.com. But I've come to the realization that, look, nobody likes to be told how to eat. None of us do. We don't like to be told, don't do this, don't do that, because it's going to just tempt us to do it anyway. So
right.
The key to healthy living is that we really need to look at food as fuel. I'm a foodie. I'm a chef. I love to create beautiful dishes. I love to create food that tastes great. There's nothing funner than, making a beautiful cake and decorating it really nicely and making a dish with, a butter sauce. And the reality is that we can still enjoy those things. I can still enjoy those things, but in very small quantities. I was just in Africa. I think I told you this before the program today, but I was in Africa for 2 weeks over the last couple of days. I just returned. And it's amazing to just see a different culture where they don't have the things that we have in the United States readily available. We can walk into any Costco and we can just pick from a shelf anything that we want to eat.
Right.
And people in other countries don't have those same luxuries that we do. And so portion your plate to me really means, look, we have everything available to us, but it's not for us to gorge. We really should, if you want to have a candy bar, well, gosh, have a little piece of it, but don't eat the whole thing.
Mm.
And if you want to have a steak, great, have a steak, but you don't need the 28-ounce ribeye. You can get by with having 3 or 4 ounces and just
yeah, I don't have to eat the cowboy cut, do I?
That's right. But
I can eat a fillet, 6-ounce fillet or something.
yeah, eat something small. But I've learned the relationship that we all have with food is it really has to be fuel. We
Right, right. Fuel our bodies, right? Keep our bodies fueled up and
that's
performing
sustenance.
well.
It's something to keep our bodies fueled. That's right. Our cars don't need a certain type of gas that has herbs and spices in it. It all runs on either regular gas or on diesel.
Yep.
And so our body is we should feed it what it needs to function on a daily basis. And while food, it should taste great, and we can be creative with food and put out dishes, but it is just fuel. It needs to get us from morning to lunchtime, and then from lunchtime to dinner time, and then from dinner time through the night.
Right. Right.
And
So
that's
just
what we need
seeing it for what it is, right?
Yeah.
Rather than using it to substitute for other needs in our lives wrapped around our identity, like you were talking about earlier. So Jacob Bustos, tell us about your website. And you just said it's portionyourplate.com.
Yes, you can go to my website at portionyourplate.com. There's a link on there. You can also click to get the book, but it's portionyourplate.com.
All right. And you've got something special on your website for Faith Positive Nation.
I do. I've got some free recipes on there. And I also like to do giveaways, and I do put my information out there. My phone number, I think, is even on the website, but on the contact us form, I make myself available to reach out to anybody who reaches out to me. I will respond to them. And I love to just, send my book and get it out there, because I think the message that it has, not only about how to feed your body, but, I think my story is important. I think people need to understand
Definitely.
it's not the easy way out. People have often said, well, you took the easy way out. And the truth is that is not the easy way out, because guess what? I can't eat rice. I can't eat, flour, and I can eat a little bit, but it doesn't feel very good. And so it's definitely not the easy way out. And so my website has some cool stuff on there.
Right. And so if you go to portionyourplate.com/faith positive, you can pick up those free recipes right there. So go to portionyourplate.com/faith positive. And Chuck's put that on Jacob's page on our website at getpositive.today. So you can just click through there if you're exercising on a treadmill or walking your dog or letting your dog walk you, right? You can go see that. Jacob Bustos is our guest. When Food is Your Frenemy is the name of the book. You got a copy of the book there. Hold it up for us, Jacob. Let us see it. It's an incredible, I love the way it looks.
Hey, the best part is there's a before and after picture. I don't know if you can see the before.
I can, man. On the right side there.
On the right side.
Before, and the left looks just like you today. What a blessing it is to talk with you and to understand what it means to get a word from the Lord and then to be obedient and go live that word. And Jacob, you're absolutely amazing. I love your story. I love you, man. I can't wait to eat some of your recipes. I'm definitely going to have to come to LA and let you cook for me, because these are your recipes, right? So have you got a favorite Bible verse that has really been your anchor verse throughout all of this amazing experience of yours?
I do. My favorite verse is Jeremiah 29:11. For the Lord has plans. For I know the plans I have for you, to prosper and not to harm you. And so that's always been a verse that stuck with me, just because, you know what? God is great, and he has a plan for every single one of us. And it doesn't matter where you're at in life. If you're not on the right path, you can start again tomorrow. And he died on a cross for us to, he took on the sins of the world, so we don't have to bear any of that stuff for eternity. So
and that salvation.
Jeremiah 29:11, it's my favorite.
I love it, man. That salvation can transform our lives into that plan that God has for us to prosper and not to harm us. Jacob, man, you're such an inspiration. Can't wait to read your book, When Food is Your Frenemy. You can go today and get some amazing recipes that have been a part of Jacob's journey, that have fed his body in a healthy way, as well as his spirit and soul in a healthy way. And you can go to portionyourplate.com, portionyourplate.com,
That's right.
/Faith Positive and pick up some of those free recipes. Jacob, thank you so much for the gift of your time, for sharing your amazing story, man. You've just blown me away with your story. And thanks for being an obedient servant of the Lord. I know my life's better, and I'm sure the lives of so many in Faith Positive Nation are as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, Dr. Joey.
All right. God bless you, buddy.
God bless you.
Boom.
Thanks for listening to Faith Positive Radio, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Suggest guests and ask questions when you email Dr. Joey at info@getpositive.today. And be sure to get your free gift of the 5 positive business conversations to have today coaching program at getpositive.today. Until next time, may God bless you with everything your heart can hope for and more than your mind can imagine.